because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable. Clean up your room.
I don't know how you can go out and protest the structure of the entire economic system if you can't keep your room organized.
The whole patriarchy thing, I think you have no idea how pernicious and dangerous it is.
It's actually rather difficult to answer a question that ends with your comments are banal politely. I would consider that more of an opinionated personal and political statement than actually a question. So why don't you try reformulating that so that there's an actual question there? Aha, well, so the overwhelming proportion of people who are in prisons are male. Now, do you want to equalize that, just out of curiosity? What about bricklayers? They're 99% male. And we've got about 3/4 of the population now in universities in the humanities and social sciences are female.
Yeah.
Are we going to equalize that? And men work longer hours. They work more dangerous jobs. They're more likely to move. They're more likely to work outside. They're more likely to participate in jobs in the STEM fields that are scalable. They make more money for those reasons. And that's all hidden under the idea that the reason that men and women make different amounts of money is because of their gender.
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm very glad that I've
but you get
exercised
my
my freedom
point.
of speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
And
do
that is
you-
what you should do. But
and
you're
do you
exercising
think-
your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned. Who has had a great time in history?
But men have had less of a...
Really?
shitty
Have
time.
they? Have
A lot
they?
of
By
the
what
time.
standard? By what standard?
Well, I'm just saying if you're a woman...
How about war? There are inequalities in the catastrophes that the genders are subject to. And so, look, first of all, there's some things we got to get straight. History is a rough business. Everybody had it rough. In 1895, the typical Westerner lived on less than $1 a day, which is absolute poverty by today's standards, right? And so people were brutally poor for almost the entire course of human history. It was rough. You say, well, did men or women have it worse? It's like, well, you know, that's a complicated question. But one of the things you can say is everybody had it pretty damn bad. I'm not suggesting in the least, and have never suggested, that there's no domain for social action. I'm suggesting that people who don't have their own houses in order should be very careful before they go about reorganizing the world, which happens in many ways. I see a backlash against masculinity, and a sense that there's something toxic about
But what is this idea
masculinity
of being
as such.
why is society overly feminized?
Well, I didn't ever say that society was overly feminized. So if we're going to discuss my views, we should use my actual words. That's pure narcissism at work, by the way.
A trans woman is a real woman.
I don't really like the way those questions are formulated. You know, I don't know what that means. What do you mean a real woman?
Well, I'm asking you, in your mind, you know, it depends what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No.
Oh, I see by the big board we got a negative Nelly in Sector 2. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask the whole family to kind of freeze and prepare for re-education.
So what is going on here? Well, Jordan Peterson has been told that he has to go to re-education in Canada for his public statements. Now, as I recall, he predicted this was going to be the case. You know, that Canada was going to be slapping down people who were saying the wrong things. And a lot of people on YouTube said, no, they're not. You're stupid, Dr. Jordan Peterson. Blah, blah, blah. Well, here you go.
People have the right to determine what language I use, especially when it's backed by punitive legislation. And when the words that are being required are the constructions, they're artificial constructions of people I regard as radical ideologues whose viewpoint I do not share. There's a difference between saying that there's something you can't say and saying that there are things that you have to say. And I regard these made-up pronouns, all of them, as the neologisms of radical PC authoritarians. Do you understand that? And I'm not a fan of that sort of person. And the reason I'm not a fan of that sort of person is because I've done my homework. I've read everything I can get my hands on in the development of authoritarian political systems, and I know the literature inside out and backwards. And I am not going to be a mouthpiece for language that I detest. And that's that.
Now, you know, I'm not a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I do disagree with him quite a lot. Here's one example.
Marxists say, well, that wasn't real Marxism. What it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good. It's like, well, think again, sunshine.
Now, he is completely wrong in his statement here. It has nothing to do with narcissism. Because I was a person who used to say this thing. I never said, hey, you know, that wasn't real Marxism. I said that wasn't real communism. Same difference, I suppose. But I even said it to the face, right to the face of a Vietnamese boss that I had. He was like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. I just shook his head. And the fact of the matter is, it's not about arrogance. It's about not understanding what communism really is. And then looking at the world that we live in here in the United States and going, well, there's not enough equality here. How come it is that I'm living in abject poverty and there's other people who are not? I want things to be more equal. But then not understanding what implementing communism will do to a country. It's just, it's terrible. You're not going to have a country like the United States and then go, okay, well, we're just going to make everything like more equal for everybody. We're going to make this equality of outcome happen, because you start losing a lot of goods and services when you do that. So that's where the disconnect is, unfortunately. But let's take a look at this article that popped up on my feed yesterday. Not yesterday, now. So this is being posted 2 days ago, Friday? Yeah, Friday. So this was also mentioned on the Gutfeld show that night. But Jordan Peterson defeated in court, mandated professionalism course. I feel for you, my brother, because this sort of garbage has happened to me. I'm not allowed to speak the way that I want to speak because you're being mean to me. Well, I'm not intending to be mean to you. I'm sorry that it sounds that I'm being mean to you. And to me, it doesn't sound like I'm being mean. I don't know what to tell you. Now, this one here comes with a little video. Let's take a look at the video, and then we can look at another one. I think this is more pertinent article. I'll leave both of these articles linked down below so you can look at them if you want to.
Where people are attempting to make us speak their language.
He is no stranger to speaking his mind.
What the judiciary is doing in support of the college is wrong.
As we all know,
An Ontario court says the province's College of Psychologists had the authority to tell Peterson to take social media training or face possible disciplinary action.
So it's actually an indefinite sentence, conditional only on what? My compliance? By what standard? To cap it all off, a social media communication expert. Who the hell is that?
It followed complaints about some of Peterson's
The social media expert that he mentioned there. That's just gonna be a person that's like, well, you gotta be nice to people. You gotta be nice on social media. You can't say controversial things. You can't say mean things. Oh, you have to agree with all of the stupid wokeisms. Yay! These idiots. It's the same thing. It's like, being emotionally intelligent. Oh, agree with the person that you're talking to. You're emotionally intelligent. Then no, stupid.
online posts, like one about actor Elliot Page. Peterson said the doctor who removed Page's breasts was a criminal. Another was directed toward a former Ottawa city councillor who uses they-them pronouns, describing...
Okay, that Ottawa council member is a criminal. Is the real criminal here. There are well-defined pronouns in the English language for a reason. But yeah, languages are all different out there. Use the language correctly, then we won't have any of these weird problems.
Catherine McKinney as, quote, an appalling, self-righteous, moralizing thing.
Inciting any type of hatred that could lead to, a risk to someone's well-being does start to cross that line.
The court...
Yes, it's a very big risk to your well-being that I don't use your preferred pronoun that you have in your head that you've made up. When you're not even around, when I'm referring to in third person, I'm not usually doing that in front of you. I'm usually doing that when you're somewhere off in the distance, where a lot of times when you can't even hear me.
Wrote, Peterson cannot have it both ways. He cannot speak as a member of a regulated profession without taking responsibility for the risk of harm that flows from him speaking in that trusted capacity.
Okay. We're all adults here. I mean, obviously there's children that might misinterpret what he's saying, but that's what the children have parents for, to guide them through things that people say that the children might misinterpret. I am in control of my own thoughts and my own actions. Otherwise, why do we have a legal system? Right? What the hell is this all about? Jordan Peterson is allowed to speak his mind. He's freedom of speech. One benefit of having freedom of speech is, hey, I know who the jerks are who I don't want to spend time around. People who dislike me because I'm white. Like I've done something by inherently being white. That's ridiculous.
Bloody well lecture me, some dimwit judge with a liberal bias, lecturing me about taking responsibility for what I say.
Peterson says both it and the college overreached. This law professor disagrees.
When it comes to licensing bodies of certain regulated professions, there are limits that are imposed that are part of upholding the integrity and the professionalism that comes with being a lawyer or being a psychologist.
Then those licensing bodies should take action against Jordan Peterson, not the law.
The decision will no doubt only add fuel to the fire worldwide between Peterson's supporters and detractors. Peterson says if he loses his license in Ontario, he'll get one elsewhere. In the meantime, he plans to appeal the court's decision. Travis Damrash, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, so let's take a look here at this other article. I thought this was a better article out of the two. Court rules that Jordan Peterson must undergo social media sensitivity training, so he appealed. The order to go to get himself re-educated. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, a clinical psychologist and conservative intellectual, must undergo social media sensitivity training, and Ontario court ruled Wednesday. This is so freaking ridiculous. When I put my book out, by the way, you can buy it down in the link below, and if you can't find it, you keep looking for it on Amazon. It's called The Wanderer. When I put my book out, and I had people read it, and they got back to me and said, you have, some of these more modern notions in here. I put in a lot of stuff. Hopefully the reader thinks about this stuff and can come to a greater understanding of themselves and the world at large. But some of the modern ideas that I put in there, you need to have sensitivity readers. I'm like, why? Their job is to find problems with my manuscript because I'm not being sensitive enough for some idiot out there who's going to be offended by every little thing that is said. That's not who I am. You're in charge of whether or not you feel offense. That's really what it comes down to. You can be like, hey, you're evil because you're white. You could say that to somebody who's white, and that you could say is objectively offensive. You could say that, but whether or not I take offense to that is my responsibility, not the person saying that. They're allowed to have freedom of speech and speak with their ideas and speak their mind. This is how we can come to a better understanding for everybody to have a better life. The court upheld an order from the government-appointed College of Psychologists of Ontario, which regulates the profession. Okay, so it is done by this regulatory body. That Peterson undergo training on his public statements. The 6-month re-education program was prescribed due to Peterson's public statements on social media, especially on transgender issues.
How dare you!
As well as his 4.5-hour appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast in January of 2022. I wish I had Spotify. See, I'm poor. I got to get more viewers so I can get money off of YouTube so I can afford to get Spotify. During which he discussed topics ranging from the Bible and capitalism to the environment and the media. The order is not disciplinary and does not prevent Dr. Peterson from expressing himself on controversial topics. It has a minimal impact on his right to freedom of expression, the decision reads. Following the transparent and coherent discussion, the panel concluded reasonably that Dr. Peterson's behavior raised a moderate risk of harm to the public. Oh, words are going to hurt the public in Canada now. Wow. I am so glad I live in a country that says, hey, freedom of speech is number one. As much as that is being threatened these days, at least I still have something that I can point to and say, hey, look, I'm allowed to say that. Which the panel had articulated in its decision and concluded that it was very concerned that the recurrence risk in this case was high. The decision reads, it therefore could conclude its chain of analysis by deciding that it would be appropriate and in the public interest to require Dr. Peterson to complete a SHRP, specified continuing education and remedial program, to address his professionalism in public statements. Yeah, just what we need, people being more professional. Got to be more PC. I stand by what I have said and done and wish them luck in their continued prosecution. The 12 Rules for Life author wrote in a tweet the day before the decision was released. They're going to need it. Okay, so here we go. The decision of an Ontario court the allegations levied against me by Ontario is due tomorrow. I stand by what I have said and done and wish them luck in their continued prosecution. Sorry, that was actually an honest slip. Believe it or not. They're going to need it. I tweeted and otherwise expressed my opposition to trans. Let's go ahead and click on the tweet here, or the X. I tweeted and otherwise expressed my opposition to trans surgery butchery and his minions and the lying climate apocalypse mongers. Okay, I disagree with that. See, there's something else I disagree with Dr. Peterson on. All that's looking pretty good from my end. And if I can't express such opinions in Canada, I will let the world know. And then down here he says, I will video record all further hearings and mandatory re-education training courses and broadcast them unedited on YouTube for the world to see. I swear it by all that is holy. Yes! Yes. I can't wait to see the re-education of Dr. Peterson. This is going to be freaking hilarious, I'm sure. You have to say things like this because it's neutral and people won't get offended. Okay, well, screw those people. Twitter suspended Peterson on June 2022 for misgendering the actor formerly known as Ellen Page, a biological female who now identifies as a male. The social media site said his statement had violated their rules against hateful speech that promotes violence. He returned to the platform a few months later after Elon Musk acquired it. This I can't say their actual name. Page, the person who acts. You know, hey, more power to him. It wasn't a misgendering in my opinion. It was the straight up thing that it is. If you want to mutilate your body and pretend to be somebody else, you can go do that. You're dealing with a serious problem though. Okay? Sort it out. Don't force the rest of the world to comply with your serious problem. Either way you slice it, no matter how you slice transgenderism, it's a problem for the individual who claims to have it. All right, well, I guess we're going to have a lot of fun seeing what happens in the future with this Jordan Peterson thing here. Thank you all for watching. I do appreciate everybody stopping by and supporting my work. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed because YouTube doesn't subscribe people every single day. You can find me over on X and on Rumble. Sometimes I'm on BitChute and Odyssey. I'm going to go ahead and leave you with your palate cleanser. Enjoy.